Time now for the Bud Light Kentucky Basketball Postgame Show on ESPN Louisville Plus. Cats coverage also presented by Cox's and Evergreen Liquors, your neighborhood liquor store. Kentucky branded, your home for all things Kentucky. Carriage Ford, best by a country mile. Bear Nose Pizza, yeah, it's that good. BJ Heating and Cooling, call the experts you can trust. Barnes Auto Service, reliable repairs from bumper to bumper. Ale 8, Kentucky's original soft drink since 1926. And UPS Jobs, apply today, upsjobs.com/worldport. Now, here are your hosts, TJ Walker and Zach Cantrell.
Hello, everybody. Happy Saturday. Happy Valentine's Day to you. This is the Bud Light Kentucky Postgame Show on ESPN 680. The game actually has now just gone final. I think that's the first time, Zach, this season that at least when I've been hosting that we've started the game or started the show technically before the game ended. But right around the horn, which makes the Bud Light Kentucky Postgame Show here on ESPN 680 the best because it is raw motion right when the clock says 0-0-0. Kentucky 83, Florida 92. Not that Kentucky totally threatened. They did get it down to 5 there with about 45 seconds, 35 seconds, whatever that was, left to go. But Florida was in control from really start to finish, although Kentucky made it interesting throughout the game. A frustrating loss for Kentucky, but better than some other frustrating losses this season. Maybe this is a sign of growth or improvement when things weren't going their way. They were getting a difficult whistle. They didn't lose by 30. They didn't totally fold. However, you need a better performance. You want them to clean some things up, and you want this game really to come down to the wire. Probably should have, all things considered. I'm not all that angry, but it should have been a better result for Kentucky, in my opinion. Zach Cantrell, how you doing, buddy? What's up?
Just the way I always envisioned Valentine's Day, doing a post-game show live from the bunker over here. But I'm doing great, and I thought that game, I'm not going to do the moral victory thing because this is the University of Kentucky. You don't do moral victories ever in any circumstance. But we have seen times this year that they have showed no heart, that they have showed no passion, and they've showed the ability to let the game get away from them against Michigan State, against Vanderbilt, especially against Gonzaga. And it looked like in the first half of this game that it was going to be kind of a repeat of that because Florida jumped out very early on in this game. They end up making 10 threes. They dominate the glass. All the stats go Florida's way. But Kentucky kept themselves in the game. I think the closest they got to four. It was 50-46 at some point in the second half, I think with about 15 minutes to go. As you mentioned, they got down to 5 with less than a minute to go. And you just never got the sense that Kentucky was ever going to get over the finish line. You felt that they were going to keep themselves in the game. It just never felt like they were ever going to be able to get the win. But I think you walk away from this game disappointed, the fact that you go down there and you don't get the job done. But Otega-Oweh goes 4 for 14, plays one of his worst games this season. And if you would have told me that he would have done that in pregame, I would have thought, oh, Kentucky embarrassment. They lose by 20, and they look like they don't belong on the same floor. And that's what we talked about. One of the things we wanted to see is, do they look like they belong on the same floor with a Florida team that I think easily has the highest upside of anybody in the SEC. I think they're one of the 10 best teams in college basketball. If I'm picking a national champ right now, Florida's easily the team from the SEC that I think can do that. And the fact that Kentucky was able to hang around in this game longer than a lot of people expect them to, you have some reason for hope that maybe when Florida comes up here in March that Kentucky can win that game. Their schedule is very manageable from this point on. This is always going to be the most difficult test. But we have, I think, seen some growth out of this team, and I think we've seen they've significantly improved. I think we've seen there's positives to take away from this game, but at the same time, you're at the University of Kentucky. You're arguably the best basketball program of all time. There is no such thing as moral victories. This was a game that you needed to win, probably to have any real hope of winning the SEC regular season title. And unfortunately for Kentucky, I think that has pretty much gone out the wayside with this loss.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, while it's frustrating to lose any games, and this hasn't been the season that we've wanted it to be for Kentucky basketball, you do feel solid, or at least you're interested in that return matchup on senior night when Florida comes to town in March. And you do also for all the frustrating losses that have happened this season. This was a game for first place. That is a solid position to be in. If any of us would have said, hey, when you play Florida in Gainesville, you're going to go into that game for a chance of first place in the SEC, we would have all pushed that button. We would have taken that. We would have said, all right, that's fine. Now, the middle is so muddied up here in the SEC, and with that loss, you fall right back into the thick of it, and you got to finish strong now. Now the ball is back in Mark Pope in Kentucky's court. Your most difficult games are at home. You have winnable games, but maybe slightly difficult on the road. And then you have some that you should just take care of. And the way that just to be specific about that, Florida and Vandy, they are at home. Those are very difficult games, but they're at home. Games that you maybe should win, but they are challenging at Texas A&M, who's lost 4 in a row now after leading the SEC there briefly. Since then, it's been a nightmare for Buckyball. And then Auburn. Those are 2 games on the road, difficult environments, solid teams. But I would say on a neutral floor, I would expect Kentucky to win those games. So on the road, you got to find a way to probably win one of those. And then Georgia at home, South Carolina on the road. Those are games you need to win. And if you lose those are going to be disappointing. So that's how it breaks down, in my opinion. Kentucky had their chances. This is a classic buffer zone game, in my opinion, Zach Cantrell. UK would get it to 7, 8, have the ball, have some momentum. Mm-hmm. And then they just wouldn't get a stop after that. And that was frustrating to me. That's happened far too many times this season. Florida is, like you said, they are the class of the SEC. They're going to win the conference. Going into this game, they were minus 800 to win the league. And that was probably still a solid bet. It was probably still, if you just wanted to have money tied up for about a month, it was probably still worth it because they are going to win the SEC. And especially with their win today, their difficult games are at home. They have the easier part of their schedule in the back half of the schedule. So now, especially with today's win, they're going to win the game. And they are a national title contender, in my opinion. And I thought Kentucky showed some fight, but I've got probably one big takeaway, and then I have a bunch of little takeaways about the game. And I'll go ahead and get the big takeaway. And you're listening to the Bud Light postgame show here on ESPN 680. Valentine's Day edition with Zach Cantrell and TJ Walker. If you just want to talk about whatever your Valentine's Day plans are, let us know. We wish we were on ESPN 680. We are not, but thanks to Justin Sofaro, we are on the YouTube show, which we're appreciative of, and we hope that you check out over. I don't want the volume to play here. Over on ESPN Louisville Plus. Tweeted out the link. Go ahead and retweet it if you don't mind. Share it and let us know. We've got some Gator fans in the YouTube comment section. Certainly not what we're looking for. My big takeaway, Zach, and you could say this at several different times throughout this season, Kentucky just needs better players. Like Florida was the better team. They were the more talented team. That was evident from the start throughout the finish of this game. And Kentucky just has to get back to going into a game and not saying, oh, okay, we look a little worse at that position, that position, that position. It really never should be more than 3. 2 should be the maximum for Kentucky basketball. And you could make a case it was maybe 4 at different times and maybe 5 at some times for Florida tonight. Kentucky's just got to get back to being the more talented team on the floor. Can Mark Pope do that? I don't know. I actually think you can have some minor takeaways from the game that Mark Pope is doing a pretty solid coaching job throughout this season. Not perfect. Obviously, the slow starts and a few blowout losses this season are unacceptable. But to have this team, which I think is incredibly limited, especially with all the injuries, continue to fight, win games, be in games after getting down 14, 15, 16, 17 points, it does say something about his coaching ability. And I actually thought the offense looked good tonight, especially the half-court offense. If you take into account quality of opponent, this was one of the half-court offense's best game we've seen from Kentucky basketball, I think, this season. It was in a losing effort, and again, maybe Florida was playing with its food a little bit. But I actually liked a lot of what we saw. So I think Mark Pope, as an X and O coach, is doing a pretty decent job this season. He just needs a team that stays healthy And then I don't know if he can get the top level talent into Lexington because unfortunately Florida was the more talented team. So my big takeaway was, all right, you just got to get back to going into every single SEC game and saying, all right, Kentucky's more talented. Florida is the defending national champs. They are the favorites in the SEC, and they are a legit repeat title contender and Final Four contender. But Kentucky looked outclassed. That's never going to sit well with me. And then within the game, you knew exactly where it went astray. When Kentucky was turning the ball over, Florida went on their runs. When Kentucky was hitting their shots, playing with confidence, and actually attacking Florida inside, which I was impressed by. Malachi Marino had a solid game today. Things went well for UK. But far too many times throughout this game, Kentucky seemed hesitant. That bugged me a little bit. It's almost like they were expecting to get punched in the mouth, so they just sat back and took it. The officiating was bad, but you expect that on the road in conference play. That's just life. That's going to happen. You're not going to get those calls. And it seemed like UK let it impact them far too often with how they played. All right, if they're going to call you for fouls, all the more reason to be physical. And when Florida went on their runs, it was usually because Kentucky was playing soft, playing a little timid, but that wasn't the story of the entire game. So there are things to build off of. I'm not going to do the moral victory either, Zach Cantrell, but there were things to like, and I am intrigued by the return matchup. I think Kentucky can beat Florida, and that's a good thing, right? I think Kentucky can win every game left on their schedule with the way that they've been playing lately. They showed fight. Florida was just more talented, and that's an issue in its own right, but a different story for a different day, I suppose.
Yeah, you can't have that when you're Kentucky. You can't go into a game with the other team being the more talented team, and that was clearly the case. I think the most disappointing part about this game for the Kentucky's perspective is that the Florida guards outshot and dominated the Kentucky guards. Because it's one thing, look, Florida up front with Alex Condon and Thomas Hoff, that is as good of a frontline duo as there is in college basketball. You kind of expected to get dominated up front. You didn't expect Xavier Lee to be waved through like a traffic cone, basically, in the second half, or especially in the first half of this game, because they just couldn't stop the penetration there. Malachi Moreno getting 11-11. If you would have told me that was going to be his numbers in pregame, then I would have thought Kentucky would have had a real chance to win. But Florida ultimately dominated up front, and it was their backcourt that was surprising. I mean, that three-point shooter, Urban Klazovar, not the most successful Urban ever in the history of Florida, but pretty close second, I would say. But he just kept getting left open time after time after time. And Kentucky did the thing that we said that they couldn't do, which is they had to defend for a minute 20, because they could not secure offensive rebounds. And ultimately, if you don't get offensive rebounds, then you're going to eventually give up a wide open look. And that happened far too often in this game. And that's the question about Mark Pope going forward is, can you get the more talented guys? Can you get to a SEC game where, I mean, you could probably count on one hand during the Calipari era how many times Kentucky went into a game as the lesser talented team. And it seems to happen on a regular basis with this team, and they just get down double digits to start games. And it's great when they come back. It's a great story to say you're down 17 the first half twice against Tennessee. You're down 17 the first half against LSU, and you come back to win. But not when it becomes a regular pattern. And it's become that clearly over and over again with this team, that they just don't know how to start games. And you're not going to win games when your backcourt shoots a combined 12 for 35. Aberdeen and Owe just don't have it, and they needed to have it today. This was a game that Otega Owe, you're the preseason SEC Player of the Year. Go out and show it in this game. Go out and drop 25, drop 30 points, be the best player on the floor, and he fell well short of that, wasn't close to the best player on his own team in this game. This is a game where Denzel Aberdeen, being a former Florida Gator, you expect a little bit more out of him. I thought he had moments in the second half, but he just didn't have enough consistency throughout the entirety of the game. Florida was the better team, and it wasn't, frankly, all that close, and Florida could have won this game probably more decisively, but I think just they won in a way that was a little bit different than we expected Florida to win the game, and I think that's disappointing if you're a Kentucky fan. And again, there's no moral victories. There's no, we only lost by 9. It doesn't work like that. It's do you win or do you not? And they didn't get it done.
Sure.
And
I agree with that.
Yeah.
It is do you win or did you lose at Kentucky? And there are no moral victories. But if Florida, if they should have won by more, then Why didn't they win by more? And I think a lot of teams are saying that about Kentucky. Tennessee, how did we have two 15, 14, 17-point leads and lose those games? I think Arkansas, after the game, was saying, how did we lose those guys? This Kentucky team is persistent. And when they're bad, it is really bad. When they're good, it is good enough to probably go to a Final Four. Now, could they string it together for 4 games with all their inconsistencies and with their highs and lows? It's unlikely. But I do think you're seeing, as of late, and again, it was proven today at different times, this Kentucky team can go toe-to-toe and be a top 10, top 15, top 20 basketball team. It's just how consistently can you do it? And then the three-point defense, you needed to win the three-point battle. You lost 10-9, so you didn't win it, so that's bad just to start. But it was 2 guys for Florida that combined for 9 of their 10 threes. They were 50%, 9 of 18 was Xavier Lee and Clavzar. And I agree with that. Yep. Yeah, the majority of them were open, and Kentucky was going under screens early. You can't do that. What are you thinking? And then late, they just were, and part of it was a little bit of a junky zone defense and just getting lost in that. If you have 2 guys that are combining for nearly double-digit threes, you can't leave them. You can't lose them. You can't miss them. So you need to go out and you need to guard them. So it was those little things. Otega Oweh, he didn't have a great game. But stop trying to go to the rim against one of the best front courts in the country. And then fatigue played a big factor with him as well. So you didn't get a great Otega game. You lost the three-point shooting battle, which you shouldn't have. Or if you wanted to pull the upset, you shouldn't have. And you still had chances. So there were things to like. Zach, I think we've got a caller or somebody on the phone line. This is the Bud Light Kentucky postgame show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, make sure you're DMing Justin Sofaro at Justin Sofaro. We've got Bug. Bug, welcome into the Bud Light Kentucky postgame show. Happy Valentine's Day, buddy.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day, guys. First of all, we made the Blazing Asian look like an All-American. I mean, we left him wide open every chance that we could.
I'll let Justin have the creative control over that. It is uncensored. I was disappointed early on just going under those screens. You needed to stick with him. I think, Bug, what they were thinking was Florida's going to kill us on the glass, so let's keep everybody close here in the paint. But there were like 3 dudes on Florida you can't leave alone on the perimeter, and 2 of them just had career nights. Yeah, that's not good.
My only rule when you say crazy stuff like that is just, it's fine. You all can say crazy stuff, but just when it makes it real, don't get mad at me. You made yourself look bad. You didn't do it. I did. I didn't do it. You did it.
That's fine. We're on YouTube. I'm not on the radio, so we're good on that. But this is the second game in a row that they shot 10 threes in a row, or 10 threes. I think it's the third game of the season that they've shot 10 threes. And it's like we didn't learn in the first half. So is it on the players or is it on the coaching that we cannot get a grasp on the game in the first 10 minutes?
I think it's got to be on the players, honestly. Obviously, it falls on both, but if you just want an answer, I don't think the coaches all of a sudden forget how to coach for a certain portion of the game. I think a lot of times the players just don't come out right, which that falls on the coach at the end of the day. Get your players to be ready, even if they're slow starters, even if they're people that need a little tick to get going. Figure something else out. That's why you get paid the big bucks. But I like a lot of what this Kentucky team does. They don't come back in these games, Bug, because they stink and these coaches don't know how to coach and these players forget how to play. So I put it on. I don't think the coaches all of a sudden just don't, well, no, what are we doing? They do some good stuff. And actually, in my little notebook, I had written down that Kentucky, once again, just was missing shots, going under screens. Those are things which, again, maybe that is coaching. Maybe the under screen part is coaching. What are you doing? So it's probably a combination is the right answer, Bug. But I have a hard time believing that these coaches just forget how to coach at the specific start of the game. I think these players just need a little while to get going. It is what it is. But in games like tonight, that's what costs you. You played them pretty much evenly. after getting down big, you outplayed them probably after, you were down 15 and you lost by 9. So you outplayed them at that point, Bug. But against good teams, it just ain't going to happen every single night. You can't get down like this.
No, it's not. And I'm kind of with you. It's on each party. There was times in the, I don't know, I think it was the first 12 or 13 minutes really, that I'm like, just call a timeout. You need to get these guys together. You have got to calm them down and put them on a game plan. And it just didn't happen. He let them run loose and was just trying to see what they did and how they played. And I mean, we've seen it several times this year. It's just, man, it's frustrating to get down 14, 15, 16, 17 points in the first half. And yeah, we did come back and we did cut it to 5. But at the same time, if we can cut it to 5, then why can't we be up 10?
I've thought this a couple times with Pope, that he's just a little late on timeouts. He would say in this situation, if we were able to play his audio, which we're probably not going to, although Justin, if I'm wrong about that, then
we can play it, but I'm looking all over. I haven't been able to find it, and I know he's live already talking, but I haven't seen it
and
anywhere.
There's not a ton of UK media down there. I think the Lexington Herald Leader was down there, and I know that Jack Pilgrim and Stephen Peak were down there, but I'm not exactly sure who all else is down there. The Mark Pope press conference brought to you by ALA, Kentucky's original ginger soft drink. But Bug, this was a point in the game. Kentucky, and this happened like 8 different times, probably 10 different times, truthfully. But Kentucky got it to 7 with 10:24 to go. Malachi Marino had a nice layup. Kentucky had overall momentum at that point in the game. Florida comes down and they shoot just a bogus hook shot. It shouldn't have gone in, whatever. You're back down 9. Kentucky comes down. They probably should have gotten a foul call on a layup by Ortega. Ortega gets blocked again. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Florida comes down. They make a 3. Pope, you got to call a timeout right there. You were just down 7. Now you're down 12. This all happened in about 30 to 45 seconds, it seemed like. That is the time to call a timeout. He doesn't. UK turns it over again. Malachi maybe missed a layup or rushed a shot or something like that. Florida comes down. They get a layup. At that point now, it's a 14-point game. Guess who called a timeout then? You're just a little bit late in that, Bug, and that happens a couple times in the game, and it's happened a couple times throughout this season. I do think this is something to build off of. You saw a lot to like, but you just got to clean up that stuff if you really want to take that next jump. If we think this team can be a team that can win a few games in March, you got to clean this stuff up. This game should have came down to the wire based on how it all unfolded, but just too many mental mistakes just kept you at arm's length away throughout the game.
No, I agree with I agree with all that, and I'll leave you with this. But how many trips down the floor also did we have a chance at a second or a third rebound? And I mean, it hit right in front of us, and the other team got it. Just a little too slow to the draw. The other team wanted it just that much more.
And if you want to beat a good team, Bug, you can't do it. Have a good Valentine. What's your Valentine's Day plans, Bug?
Yes, sir.
What do you got going on tonight?
I'm smoking some ribs and gonna barbecue some chicken for the old lady and just have a good night at the house.
Wow,
sounds good to me,
great.
man. Yeah.
Any love advice
sir.
for
Yep.
Zach Cantrell? He's single, but he's always looking.
Love advice. It's kind of tough with me on that. You know, when you get in an argument, just kind of shake your head and agree, but I'm still trying on that also.
I hear you, Bug. Just happy wife, happy life. I like it. Well, have a good night. That sounds delicious. Hope the ribs and chicken slap. Have a good one, buddy.
All right. Yeah, y'all have a good one.
Yeah, missed opportunities, I think, is the name of the game for UK. Unlike some other losses, though, this is one that you don't have to hang your head for a week in disgrace. Kentucky showed fight. They showed that they belonged with Florida. And ultimately, though, Zach, you just same old in terms of sloppiness. You gotta make your free throws if you want to win this game. You can't turn the ball over. And they finished tonight's game. I had written it down, but I'd have to pull that up, with 14 turnovers, but 9 were in the first half. And it seems like in that 9 in the first half, Zach, it seemed like almost all of them were in the first 9 or 10 minutes, which I'm sure somebody has the stats for that. But you clean up that beginning of the game. And again, whether it's the coaches or the players, who's to blame, I'm not so sure. But that's really probably where you lost it, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, that's where they've lost, I don't know, 90% of their games this year has been in the first half. It's just become a recurring theme. And look, a couple of the Tennessee wins and the LSU win kind of covers up the fact that this has been a regular occurrence for this team. And it's on both. It's on the players. It's on the coaches. It's just a complete all-systems failure as far as the first 10 minutes of the game go. And you're absolutely right on Mark Pope. Mark Pope is very reactionary, not proactive. So, he will wait till the last second to call a timeout. He needs to call it earlier. I just saw Pat Kelsey, for instance, 66-53, Louisville was up. Baylor hits 2 baskets in a row, cuts it to 9, gets a little bit of momentum. Pat Kelsey just called a timeout. That's what you're supposed to do in that situation. And Pope is too reactionary, and he doesn't make the adjustments until they're already down 10. Why don't you make the adjustments? Why don't you study the film before the game and have a solid plan for what you're going to do from the very start of the game? They're just they wait until the second halves of games. And by the time you do that, when you go up against teams like Florida, it's already too late because that's one of the best teams in college basketball. You might get away with it against Tennessee. You're not getting away with it against Florida. And that's just been a pattern for this team. You can't turn the ball over 14 times on the road and expect to win. As you mentioned, a lot of that came in the first half, but even in the first 10 minutes. But you can't play 30 good minutes of basketball if the first 10 minutes are awful. Because if you play 10 awful minutes, you're not coming back from that. And far too often, that has been the bugaboo for this team. But again, when you're backcourt, when it's Aberdeen and Oweh that don't shoot the ball that well, you're not going to win because that's the key to your team right there. Your 2 best players, arguably. If neither of them play well, you're just not going to win. And at some point, you have to make the adjustment of, we need to stop taking the ball to the basket as consistently and regularly as they did. Because all those missed layups, there were missed layups, but a lot of it was caused by the size of Florida. But you knew that going into the game. So, but you just continue to attack anyway, knowing that oftentimes it came up futile. It's like they refuse to learn the lesson until it's too late to learn the lesson. And you can't do that.
And earlier, Zach, I complimented them for being aggressive and attacking Florida. Oh, this front court, this front line, they're so physical, they're so good. Well, let's go take it to them. And it didn't work for UK, but they had some success. And again, Malachi did some good things. And we'll get to the points in the paint here. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but Kentucky held their own in the game. But at some point, you needed to realize, okay, we can get inside. We're having a tough time finishing inside. So let's kick it out and to upset Florida to win this game. Let's start knocking down some outside shots until Florida starts to overcrowd the perimeter a little bit. And if we can get one-on-one matchups again inside, we can take those. But when you were trying to go up against 2 or 3 Florida defenders, it was silly. Kick it out. At that point, you were having success. Florida's guards beat you offensively, but they still couldn't guard you defensively. Ortega and Denzel, they were able to get downhill and get where they wanted. But that's where they ran into trouble, and I think that's what Florida wanted them to do. So they needed to grow and they needed to move on from that. Zach, any other thoughts? And we can throw it over to John.
Yeah, basically, again, like I mentioned, they're just reactionary, and they played right into Florida's hands. And I thought they held up a little bit better against Florida's front line than I expected. But again, that's what makes it a little disappointing is the fact that you had those defensive lapses. You had just the first 10 minutes of the game to go so poorly that you could not come back from that. Some of the stats, like I mentioned, Malachi Moreno having 11 and 11, you're going to take that every single day as Malachi continues to improve. I thought he held his own to a degree against Hoff and against Condon, as far as those guys didn't completely dominate the game. But they were the best players in the game, and you knew Florida's front line was just going to be a major problem. And I think Kentucky kind of overcorrected, especially early on in the game. And once they figured out that, maybe we don't have to continue to take the ball to the basket, maybe we can actually set up outside shots, it was already too late. And even still, they got out 3-point shot by Florida. Florida made 10 threes, Kentucky made 9. And that was the stat that Kentucky had to win the game.
Yeah, Alex Condon said, if we make 10 threes, I don't think there's anybody in the country that can beat us. Todd Golden says in his post-game press conference, don't think we played our best, but we played well enough to win. I agree. I don't think Florida played their best. All the more reason for Kentucky to have probably to make that game a little bit closer, but Kentucky didn't play its best either. So the score was.
And I agree with him as far as if Florida makes 10 threes, then they're going to win 95% of their games against just about anybody because of that front line. Right now, they're going to be the world's most dangerous 3 seed. They still have a chance maybe to move up to a 2. I think it would take winning the SEC tournament, probably winning out to do that. But I'll tell you what, if you're Arizona or Michigan or Duke or Houston or somebody like that, you want no part of Florida playing in that Sweet 16 or in the Elite 8.
Yeah, and UK fan 17, I just saw it in the top scroll. He said, playing aggressive got Chinyulu in foul trouble, which impacted the game. He was still impactful, and he is a man, and there is the Oscar Tshiebwe comparisons are legitimate. But that's right. I like the idea to play aggressive. You just needed to pivot at a certain point. When it was time to strike there, when you'd get it to 7 and you had momentum, probably time at that point to switch it up. But again, that's what got you there. They were aggressive. At times it worked. Other times it didn't. I think Ortega fatigue played a big factor. He was very, very tired. And
that was a tired team in the second half for sure. Carl Ravitch even mentioned it.
He wasn't alone in that. All right, let's go back to the phone lines here on the Bud Light ESPN 680 Kentucky postgame show. Caller John. John, welcome in. Happy Valentine's Day, buddy.
Happy Valentine's Day, TJ and Zach. It's going to be a good Valentine's Day tonight. Not good that we lost a game, but
there you go, John. Okay.
Friends.
He's too erect.
I tell you this, guys. I hear everything you guys are saying, and there's no moral victories we can take from this. But I was putting together a Valentine rose. They're made out of little Lego stuff. So I was putting it together for my wife. I thought that'd be a little bit different. So I'm sitting there putting it together, watching the game, and I just kind of felt like we'd make some runs, and we did. Chandler hit some good three-pointers. Obviously, he's really coming into his own this year as far as what he can do, and I'm excited about that stuff. And I'm looking forward to the rematch with Florida at Rupp. I don't know if it's going to be the same outcome. I don't think it's going to be. I think we're going to find a way. We will win that game. And I think a while back, guys, we were looking at, when Kentucky was kind of on that losing streak area, and then we were looking back at the rest of the schedule, and we were like, well, how many can they get here? What do we think is going to happen here? And we counted like the Tennessee, probably maybe more likely a loss, at Tennessee and all that. Then, we were like, we may not even know if we can beat them at home, and then, well, definitely Florida's a loss. I mean, so there were some games that we have won that I think some of us in our own mind had them as losses. But I'm not, we lost. There's no doubt about it. We didn't, obviously, score says what, So hats off to them. They made some extra buckets. There was about a 3 or 4 more possession ball game that Florida made the better effort on. And that's how they ended up winning this game. And I agree with TJ. This wasn't Kentucky's best game either. So if Florida, you're coming at us with your B-level game and we're coming with a B-level game and you've got 4 possessions better than us, I mean, give us another day or another game and we might be 4 possessions better than you. And so I don't know that I still feel like it's wide open. I still feel like we can win some games down the stretch. It's not the end of the world. And usually I'm kind of more upset about a loss, but I'm not. But I got big Valentine's plans tonight, TJ and Zach.
What are those plans, John?
Big stuff. Oh, fun things, my friend. Fun things.
Grow the great American penis.
I went and got the wife a necklace. I went and got her some chocolate. I built the rose. We're going to go to dinner. Then we're going to go to a movie. And then, y'all know. You know what's going to happen.
My underwear's soaked.
Everyone. Look, I've been with her for 20 years. 20 years. Been married for 16.
He amazes me with his
stamina.
Well, okay, that's
I don't
good.
have to wait for holidays, boys.
That's great, but
I,
bragging about it tonight. It's a holiday. What movie are you seeing, John?
we're gonna go see. I can only imagine 2, but we might do a double movie, and there might be another movie we watch at 10 o'clock too, because we like to just spice it
for
up.
back home, huh?
I don't know. I ain't need that. I don't need that because we put on our own show. You know what I'm saying, TJ?
Wow, that's
This,
what we like
this is
to
a
hear.
lot of pregame hype. I need the postgame review afterward. I want the press conference from the wife after this is over. It's easy to talk about it. You're high and mighty on this right now. I need to talk afterward. I need her, with a mic in front of her, giving her review of the performance.
I was gonna say he's coming out here.
She'll be
He's like Joe
my
Namath,
friend.
guaranteeing he's going to win the Super Bowl over here.
Hey, she'll be too worn out to give you that press conference, my friend. She'll be asleep, you know what I'm saying?
Oh boy. Oh boy. John,
But-
what do you think about the UK GOAT, Dan Issel, say going out for Valentine's Day is for amateurs? To go out on Valentine's Day is for amateurs. John's thoughts.
Okay, my thoughts is this. Everybody's in their own boat with their own wife, man. So my wife kind of still wants me to do these things, and I kind of don't want to sometimes. I'm like an Al Bundy type guy. I'm like, man, whatever, But this year, man, it just feels different with all the chaos and everything going on in the world and everything that could be going on in people's lives or whatever. You know what? Go out and spend some time with someone you love, because you just never know when you ain't got no much more time to do that with. You know what I'm saying?
What do you think's going on in the world that you're worried about how much time you have left?
Well, I'm not necessarily myself, but people have, I don't want to say things like cancer, or, people have bad deals with their jobs or whatever. And there's political stuff going on. Love people, y'all. We love each other. Come on. We come together, right or left leaning. We all love each other. And I'm right leaning conservative, just in case y'all don't know. But I love everybody, though. We just come together, man. We love each other, man.
Well,
Keep your heads up,
we're
guys.
all over. We're all over the place. Any love advice for one Zach Cantrell before I let you go, John?
Zach, always love somebody to the bitter end, but don't listen to that other caller. You fight for whatever the hell you want, my friend.
Damn right.
All right.
Sure, his mom's great also.
Thanks, guys. Later.
John, have
Thanks,
a great
John.
night. Hope everything goes as well as you're indicating it will. It seems like you're not too worried about it. So that's good. Zach, that was a loaded phone call.
That was something. I mean, that's not what I was expecting after Kentucky loses to Florida. I would have expected, Kentucky fans, perhaps if they won the game, to be a little bit more up-tempo and upbeat about what they're going to do after the game. Usually you don't have that kind of performance after a loss, but I mean, good for John. If he can still perform like that after a defeat, good for him.
Yeah, I like that. We're not going to let UK coming up short in Gainesville stop us on Valentine's Day. That's the message John is sending out there, and I can appreciate that. I can appreciate that. If you'd like to get in touch with the Kentucky Bud Light postgame show here on ESPN 680, just go ahead and slide into those DMs of one Justin Soforo at Justin Soforo. SO.
I'll put a graphic up. Just
There
to make
you
it
go.
easier.
Easy enough for folks if you want to get in touch with the show. Otherwise, Zach Cantrell, I don't think we're going to get the Mark Pope press conference, brought to you by Ale8, Kentucky's original ginger soft drink since 1926. But if I see any quotes, we will mention those throughout the show. If he says anything that stands out to you, let us know. Otherwise, let's go to the Twin Peaks player of the game. I'm curious who you're going to go with here, Zach Cantrell. Twin Peaks eats, drinks, scenic views over at Twin Peaks, right off I-264 in St. Matthews, near Oxmoor Mall, over on the Oxmoor Mall side of things in the Louisville area. Zach, who was your Twin Peaks player of the game?
Yeah, there's not really a lot of great options for a game like this, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to Colin Chandler. 5 threes, 18 points. I thought he reasonably held up on the defensive end of the floor. And this is a guy that we've talked about all season. Earlier in the year, we questioned whether he should be on a Power 5 roster, and the way that he's developed and came into his own, I think he's been one of the success stories of this Kentucky team. The way that he can defend people, the way that, late in games he is the guy that if he's going to shoot it late, it's probably going to go in. I thought Colin Chandler probably deserved it today. Now, not a lot of great candidates. Like I mentioned, Moreno had 11 and 11, but I'm going to say that I'll give it to Colin Chandler.
I think that's the right answer for Twin Peaks player of the game is Colin Chandler. 18 points. He was efficient. Yeah, him going under the screens, that really bothered me there early on. But he had some tough defensive assignments, sometimes guarding people that were 5, 6 inches taller than he was, which is, I'm told, a lot of inches, a great deal of inches, 5 or 6 inches there. But I would, just to be different, go with Malachi Marino. I do think incredibly highly of Florida's front court. I said it all week on Kentucky Roll Call. I'm not reinventing the wheel by saying that. It is legitimately one of the best front courts, whether you think it's the best or the third best or maybe the fourth best. But there's not 5 better than Florida for the freshmen to go in on the road in a game where they were calling BS ticky-tack fouls. It was hard to get a rhythm for the game. He finished with 4 fouls, but didn't foul out. He grew up a little bit, and he takes some time to kind of gel and mesh into a game. But once he does, he's an impactful player. That's a tough assignment. And Chinyelu got in foul trouble. He had 4 fouls. So I don't know how many came directly from Malachi Marino, maybe none of them. But I think you can make a strong case for a double-double for being a true freshman against that front court. That was a pretty impressive performance for Malachi Marino. But UK's not in a position to make it somewhat interesting, using air quotes there, if not for Colin Chandler's big game. So you can't go wrong really with either one of those two.
No, I agree. And Malachi Moreno needs to be on the floor for all of Kentucky's major minutes. I think he's earned that to this point. I think his development as well has been one of the success stories of this Kentucky season. And he was able to hold kind of his own against that front line. He's not going to go up against a tougher front line in the SEC, and maybe not a tougher front line in all of college basketball. And for him to have 11 and 11, I think is one of the encouraging things that you can take out of this game. The fact that he was physical defensively, the fact that he went up and was able to rebound the ball, the fact that he was able to. This is a guy that didn't know where to be on the floor in the Michigan State game. His positioning just was not there. The Gonzaga game as well, and ever since the LSU shot, it's like the light bulb has switched on for him. And I think he's been one of the 2 or 3 best players on this Kentucky team over the last month or so of the season. Malachi Moreno, I think, is earning himself some major playing time, and they need him on the floor in the last 5-6 minutes of the game whenever it's close. I think he's earned that.
A lot of people are curious, could you do a dinner, going out to dinner, which on Valentine's Day probably ain't an in and out like Rick Pitino 30-minute, 45-minute shindig sort of deal. That's probably a little bit of a longer of a meal out on Valentine's Day, on evening, and then 2 movies, and then you're getting down to business. A lot of people are curious about that, Zach. That's about
Some are wondering. Yeah, 2 movies maybe stretching it a little bit. Usually, one gets the job done typically.
John,
how old is John? How old is he?
I think he's like 42 or something, or 50. He's not. He's like 45-ish, give or take 5 years.
Here's the thing. I'm in my mid-30s. Yes, I'm in the worst shape of my life, but I'm in my mid-30s. I got 3 kids. After dinner, it's got to be pre-dinner. There's no way anything's happening after the dinner. After you eat, it's no. I'm rolling over. It's bedtime. Let's be real. Let's be real, John. You're not doing it. Does John not have kids? If you don't have kids, maybe you're good.
He has an older kid that I think I don't know exactly how old, maybe high school or college or somewhere in that ballpark. So I don't think babysitters are an issue necessarily, but there is truth to the fact that we're not 18 years old anymore, John. And I don't think we have some of these ad reads on the postgame show that would be, again, next season, never too late. We could ease into an ad read that pretty much every other radio show in the history of radio shows has. We don't in this instance, but yeah, that is a long night. Dinner.
John said he's 40. He is a man.
He is a man. You're right about that. Kentucky at times played manly, but not enough. led Florida on the glass throughout the game, ultimately did not win that rebounding battle. KPG glass, who hit the glass? Florida wins the rebounding battle 45-37. But it was a point of emphasis for Kentucky, and I believe I'll get that pulled up right here. In the first half, Kentucky went in tied on the glass. They were up 2 or 3 on the glass at different times in the second half, but ultimately Florida wins that rebounding battle by an 8 rebound margin. Malachi Marino, nobody had more rebounds in the game than he did. Chinyelu also had 11, and Condon for Florida had 11 as well. But Marino with 11 rebounds. This is something I mentioned on my show, Zach Cantrell, was when you have to focus, you get out rebounded by 15 against Tennessee, and it's the first time you get out rebounded by 15 in a win since the 1998 national championship game. So it doesn't happen often. So Mark Pope and the coaching staff all week, a bye week, no game, no midweek game for UK. They're emphasizing, if we don't hit the glass, we're going to lose. You got to hit the glass. You got to hit the glass. One concern that I have about that, you have to do it if you're UK's coaching staff. You can't say, hey, the things we did against Tennessee were good. Go out and do them again. No, you got to make it a point of emphasis because Florida's a better rebounding team than Tennessee. But one area of concern is when you drive that home so frequently, you kind of can fall short in some other areas. And I think you saw that on some closeouts when you had 2 guys for Florida that just kill you on threes. I think that was you're paying the price of focusing on rebounds. That's that can happen when you're so focused on, the shot went up, I need to go rebound, or I'm defending, but I know as soon as the shot goes up, I need to turn around and find a body and block somebody out. You can fall short in some areas, and I especially think early on, Kentucky's defensive assignments were just a little off, probably because they were so focused on rebounding, which worked for Kentucky, but it cost you in some other areas. So that's basketball.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think, they focused so much. They were so worried about rebounding that they packed the lane and they forgot that long rebounds happen. And a lot of times Florida's able to get those long rebounds and knock down some open shots. I think Kentucky's half-court defense was okay. It wasn't spectacular. But Florida just killed them with second chances. They killed them with, Kentucky packing the lane and the ball getting outside the lane and able to knock down an open shot. So, yeah, I think they focus. Sometimes you do that, whether it's you're worrying about somebody knocking down threes or you're worried about rebounding or you're worried about something else, that you focus so much on that one thing that it opens up opportunities for everybody else. And you certainly wouldn't have expected Urban Klazovar to have 5 3-pointers in the game. And how many of them just came on wide open look after wide open look, especially in transition and second chance opportunities. So, yeah, I think they at times focus too much on rebounding. Now, if you would have not have focused on it, maybe you would have got dominated in that department. But you knew Florida was probably going to win that battle anyway. You just had to kind of minimize the damage. And only getting that rebounded by 8 does that to a degree. But it was the second chances that they didn't get and that Florida got that ultimately made a big difference.
Malachi Marino was the first Kentucky freshman to have a double-double in a true road game against a top 15 opponent since Julius Randle at number 1 Florida on their senior day back in 2014. And weirdly enough, I was going to make the comparison between this Kentucky team and that 2014 Kentucky team, which they may end up being seeded relatively close to one another. That Kentucky team was an 8 seed. They should have been seeded a little higher, probably a 7 or a 6. This UK team, probably right in that range. 7 or 6 seems likely as of today. Not impossible. They could fall into that 8-9 game if things don't go their way here in the final 6 games of the season. But I do remember that Florida game back in 2014. That UK team, they were very frustrating. You're coming off an NIT season. You bring in all this talent. It's supposed to be a much better season. You have a bunch of hiccups throughout the season. They didn't have the blowout losses that this team has had. But as the season progressed, they started to provide some good moments. And you started to say, all right, well, maybe you got something here. Now, the point of emphasis on that 2014 team was this is NBA talent that is just now scratching the surface here in March. Watch out on a neutral floor. Who knows what could happen? You don't have that same ceiling question with this team, but I do think it's fair to wonder they're playing connected with one another for the first time this season, and they're starting to get some rhythm and they're getting a roll. And maybe you get Cam Williams back, who knows? But come March, maybe this is an entirely different team than what you saw in December. And that Florida game in 2014, they lost it, and I don't think it was all that close, but they had a couple runs to make it interesting. But that was the number one team in the country, and Florida was your odds if they weren't going to win the title, it was going to be a bit of a shocker. Sure enough, they lose to UConn, who beats Kentucky in the championship that game. But Kentucky said in that game, you're like, all right, well, maybe Kentucky's got a little something. And they played that same Florida team a week later in the SEC tournament championship game in Atlanta. And James Young, I think it was James Young, he slips with a to tie that game or win that game. And you said, all right, well, this team is definitely ready to go at this point. I'm excited to see what this UK team does moving forward, because I do think we're not a moral victory post-game show. I'm sorry, we're just not. But I do think that this game is a bit of all right, maybe they can go toe-to-toe with just about anybody. And if they can, then when you play Georgia on Tuesday, no funny business. Go win that game. Georgia's not playing its best basketball right now. There's no reason to mess around and have that one come down to the wire. If Kentucky is the team that went toe-to-toe with Florida tonight, you really should maybe win out, drop one, possibly two if just something doesn't go your way or a last-second shot. But anything more than 2 losses the rest of the way, Zach, would be disappointing with the way Kentucky's played, including tonight, which wasn't a perfect game, but it'd be disappointing anything more than 2 losses moving forward.
Yeah, you can't have that, and especially with the next 3 games, really provide opportunities, because it's Georgia, as you mentioned, not playing their best basketball. Auburn on the road. I know it's on the road, but they beat a much better Auburn team last year down there, and Stephen Pearl's the head coach, so that should be a winnable game. And South Carolina on the road, one of the worst teams in the SEC. So your next 3 games, I really think Kentucky should just handle their business. We shouldn't be having – they should be no headlines games. They should be go take care of your business, win the games you're supposed to win. And then with Vanderbilt at Texas A&M and then Florida, go 2-1. I think if they go 5-1 in their last 6 games, I think if you're a Kentucky fan, you're feeling pretty good about where you're at heading into the SEC tournament, especially if one of those 5 wins is the rematch against Florida, because like I've mentioned, I think they are the best team in the SEC. But you've got 2 big home opportunities coming up to kind of redeem yourself for, losing on the road at Vanderbilt by 1 million and then losing today, although that's not a blowout or anything, but losing on the road at Florida. So you got some chances to kind of get those games back, and you have a last 6 games that we thought was going to be more daunting than it has turned out to be. So go get it done now. We're not doing they had some nice moments here, nice moments there. You're not doing that anymore this season. You might be, we can do that today, but I'm not doing any more of that this year. Now it's just go out and win the games, get it done. Yeah, go get it done now.
The good team, the best of the best that you play, it's at Rupp. And you're never going to say, well, you lost to a good team at Rupp. That's okay. No, you got to win your home games. I don't care if it's against Florida or Vanderbilt. You need to win those. And then the ones on the road, exactly like you said, I think you nailed it. Lanning's Paints, they nail everything. Go to Lanning's Paints. We love them. Points in the paints. 36-36. Kentucky holds their own against the Gators in the interior. That's a win for Kentucky. However, you lost the 3-point shooting battle, so everything comes with a price, I suppose. 36-36 there in the paint for UK. Mo Diabate did some good things in the interior. He fought, obviously, Malachi Marino with the double-double. Otega Owe and Denzel Aberdeen, the majority of their misses seem to be in the interior. They were just a step off tonight. They play better. It's a different story. And maybe that's your Barnes Auto Service basketball fixes, things that we want to see fixed, reliable repairs from bumper to bumper. BarnesAutoservice.com. What is yours, Barnes Auto Service basketball fix, Zach Cantrell?
Again, it's first half starts. I mean, how many times can we repeat it? Just no more defensive lapses. That has been a common trend with this team. They have about a 5 or 10 minute stretch that they just can't defend anything. And that ultimately ended up making the difference in this game because, like I mentioned, they played 30 good minutes of basketball. And I think they had 10 minutes, which was kind of a disaster. And that ended up being the difference. You can't just have 10 disastrous minutes. So start the game better. I think closing out on shooters is a big part of this. They didn't really do that in this game. And although you held your own as far as points in the paint, you got to realize that the other team, in this case, has a massive size advantage. So I just think they tried to force the issue in multiple ways, a little bit more than they should have. So that and Ortega and Denzel Aberdeen have to make more shots. They've got to be a little bit more consistent. So a lot of it's kind of the same things over and over again. It's the first half starts. It's getting beat on the glass. It's giving up open shots, things like that. Those are going to have to be fixed if you're going to go out and go 5-1 in your last 6 games and do the things that we think that this team can do.
I'm just going to go with defense, and that's broad, but I hated the way they started defensively, going under on screens. They had trouble defending without fouling. Part of that was a tough whistle, but that's life on the road in the SEC, and some of it was just silly fouls. They got you in the air, and you jumped. You were coming in slashing late. You can't do that stuff. So defense needed to be better. That is what I would like to see improve. Tough assignment. Florida's a really good team. They're beating everybody. You played them closer than most have as of late. Again, not a moral victory thing. This Kentucky defensive team, we thought that they may have the guard advantage. Florida's guards as a whole outplayed Kentucky's, at least if you take into consideration expectations. Kentucky's guards, you expected them to put up a ton of points. They did, but it took a ton of shots to do that. Florida was much more efficient. Turnovers were an issue as well, but I was overall most disappointed with UK's defensive performance. Let's go to the SEC conference standings. Cats had a chance to be number 1 in the conference if they play better, if the defense is better, if they don't turn the ball over, if they outshoot Florida from behind the arc. They had a chance to be number 1 in the SEC. These SEC conference standings are delivered by Louisville Ladder, built to be above. The Cats could have been above Zach Cantrell, but instead they are not.
They could have been above everybody, but Florida now moves to 10-2, so they've got a game-and-a-half lead over Arkansas. The Razorbacks will play later tonight against Auburn. Vanderbilt and Kentucky tied at 8-4. Of course, Vandy holds a tiebreaker. In that instance, Tennessee, Alabama, and Missouri all 7-4 in SEC play. So a lot of things can change as far as where the Wildcats would be if the SEC tournament were today. Spoiler alert, it is not today. Texas A&M drops to 7-5 in the conference play after losing today against Vanderbilt. Texas is at 6-5, Auburn 5-6. Georgia, as we mentioned, kind of stumbling a little bit lately. They've lost 2 in a row. They're 5-7 now in SEC play. Mississippi and Mississippi State both 3-8 in conference play. They're about to play in just a matter of moments, I believe, on ESPN 2. So not the best basketball, but if you want to watch some SEC ball, go for it. Oklahoma 3-9 in the conference. LSU and South Carolina tied at the bottom of the league at 2-9. So Oklahoma at least has played their way out of the cellar, which is where they've been for a large portion of the season. And that is your conference standings.
A lot of opportunity for UK, but I saw they were projected going into this Florida game. If the SEC conference tournament started today, they would be the 2 seed, and this was going into the game. So I don't know exactly what it would be today. But the Ken Pom projections, if the season ended, they had Kentucky as a 7 seed. And I talked about on my radio show, Zach, you can't go here on February 13th, which was yesterday. You can't go on February 13th from projected 2 to wins the SEC tournament March 11th, March 10th or something like that. In 3 weeks, in 4 weeks, you can't drop 5 spots. And I get it. It's all really muddled up. The SEC is unique in that way. From 2 to, I think, like 11 is separated by 1 game, or 2 to 10 is separated by 2 games or something like that. It's insanely tight. That being said, you can't do that. You just can't go at one position middle of February and drop to nearly being in the Wednesday game. If you're the 9 seed, you're playing on Wednesday. And I don't think Kentucky will be in that spot. I'm not, knock on wood, fingers crossed. I know yesterday was Friday the 13th, but I don't think they'll be in that spot, but it's not totally off the table. So you need to close strong, and you need to find a way, get that double bye, start your SEC tournament journey on Friday, win a game, play on Saturday in the SEC tournament for the first time since, I think, 2019, which is absolutely ridiculous, and get back to having Nashville be a destination point for Kentucky fans. It's just been entirely too long. And, Zach, I'll let you comment on that, but not before I say UPS Jobs, Top 25 Scoreboard. Join the shift at UPS Jobs today. Apply, upsjobs.com/worldport. But this is a winnable remaining schedule for Kentucky. I know you agree.
No question about it. And big day of top 25 action. Let's go ahead and dive on into it. Number 3, Houston beats Kansas State 78-64. Number 24, Louisville beats Baylor on the road 82-71. Michael Brown Jr. with another 20-point game, the 7th of his freshman year. Number 2, Michigan looks like a wagon as they just throttle UCLA 86-56. Thought the Bruins might be able to keep it within 17.5. Not so much. Number 4, Duke dominates Clemson. No surprise there, 67-54 down at Cameron Indoor. Number 5, Iowa State with a big bounce back after losing to TCU on Tuesday. They dominate Kansas 74-56 at Hilton Coliseum. Number 7, Nebraska continues their strong season as they beat Northwestern 68-49 rather. Number 11, North Carolina comes back from their loss against Miami. And I don't know if you saw this. Miami was down 76-69 with a minute to go. And NC State just gave that game away. Miami scores the last state to win it late. But North Carolina comes back from losing to Miami, and they beat Pitt 79-65. St. John's, a very chippy game against Providence. Just a cheap shot by Duncan Powell caused a melee there. But St. John's beats Providence 79-69. Vanderbilt beats Texas A&M 82-69 down in Nashville. A lot of losing teams scoring 69. Not so nice on this Valentine's Day. Number 22, BYU leads Colorado 87-84, 16 seconds to go. They're in the first overtime in that game. Number 13, Purdue dominating Iowa 56-31 on the road. Number 1, Arizona about to tip it off against number 16, Texas Tech in just a matter of moments. Number 6, UConn will take on Georgetown at home. Down in Nashville, number 15, Virginia takes on Ohio State. Buckeyes need that one. They're looking for their first quad 1 win of the year. Of course, Virginia having a chance to bolster their NCAA tournament resume. Number 21, Arkansas will take on Auburn at 8:30, so that'll follow the Arizona-Texas Tech game on ESPN. And then the late ESPN game, number 12, Gonzaga on the road at Santa Clara. I can't remember the last time Gonzaga was favored by less than 10 points in any game in the West Coast Conference, maybe outside of St. Mary's in recent memory. That is your UPS Jobs Top 25 scoreboard.
There you have it. I want to also mention Otega Owe. He is a 1,000-point scorer at the University of Kentucky. He is now joining a impressive list of transfers to transfer to UK and score 1,000 points at UK. Antonio Reeves, I think he has the most by any transfer at UK. Oscar Tshiebwe, National Player of the Year, ever heard of him? And Kyle Macy, of course, that comes from Corey Price. Also, Corey Price says that even with being out rebounded by 8, Kentucky's had the second best rebounding margin of any opponent against Florida in Gainesville this year. Auburn, they lost the rebounding battle to Florida by 7. Now, they won that game. It was a total shocker when Auburn won at Florida. They got beat on the glass by 7. Kentucky was close to that. But, again, I do think that says a little something. Nobody is rebounding with Florida right now. Kentucky was for the majority of the game. Not that this is a moral victory radio show. I just have to say it again. But you showed fight. You showed life. And there is something to build off that. You played Florida about as close as anybody has as of late.
Yeah, they've been competitive with Florida. Very few teams in recent memory have been, as you mentioned, with the exception of Auburn. So there are positives to take out of this if you're a Kentucky fan, but ultimately it's a missed opportunity, and that's the margin of error in this conference. You had a chance to be first place in the SEC at the end of the day, and now you're tied for third, and I don't know where they would be seated if the tournament were today. But these are the games that if you want to be a top 5 seed and you want to be a team that can make a run in the SEC tournament, you're going to have to win these games because very likely when you get down to Nashville to play in the SEC tournament, you're going to run into Florida again. And we know that obviously they're going to run into Florida on senior day at home. So this could be the first of potentially 3 matchups with the Gators. And if you're going to get to where you want to get to, you're going to have to beat a team as good as Florida and maybe better than Florida. So these are the games that kind of determine the ceiling of this team. They determine where you can go in the tournament. And people around Lexington are not going to be happy with, they fought hard and they rallied back after a bad start if it means a first-round exit or even a second-round exit. That's just not going to happen. So this was kind of a litmus test kind of game. And there were moments, but there were not enough of them.
What to watch? Presented by Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar, pizza, beer, and sports. Zach Cantrell, you're a sports guy. It's Valentine's Day. What if I gave a rom-com for what to watch presented by Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar? They're not going to have this on at Boom Boss, but they will have delicious pizza and the best beer selection that you're going to find. But the best rom-com, Zach Cantrell, you write this down.
Okay.
Fever Pitch. How about that?
Oh, I've seen it.
Fever Pitch. It's a great movie. And you know the story of that is they had to rewrite the script because they didn't think the Red Sox were going to win the World Series. So
right, they wrote everything before 04, before they broke the curse of the Bambino. And Red Sox fans, that is a very polarizing movie for them because Jimmy Fallon, of course, is a New York guy, so he's a Yankees fan, and he had to. I'm sure you've heard the story of Ben Affleck refusing to wear a Yankees hat for a scene, so that I forget what movie it was, but they had to hold up production because Ben Affleck was so stubborn as a Red Sox fan that he wasn't going to wear any Yankees gear.
No, I don't know if I know that story, but that doesn't surprise me. And I know that Red Sox fans were conflicted with that. They got to actually be on the field for those scenes at the end of the movie when they're on the field shooting. That is legit. Which you win the World Series, you break the curse, and you just get to go out on the mound in St. Louis and celebrate with the team. That's pretty insane access. But no, I'm partial to the Red Sox, so that movie jumps out to me. What do you have to watch, whether it's sports or otherwise?
It's the Texas Tech Arizona game that's starting up right now. I think Indiana Illinois tomorrow is going to be interesting as well. No, I'm not doing the fake take. Not a big rom-com guy. There's some good ones out there, but no, I'm not going to be sitting here eating a tub of chocolate, ice cream, watching a rom-com. That's not happening. It's just like every other Saturday in the Cantrell bunker.
Do you ever go out to the bars on Valentine's Day? Have you ever done that before?
No, I have never gone not on the day itself. I know friends that go out to the bars on February 13th that are trying to, get some things accomplished, but that's actually probably the worst day of the year.
Isn't that when Ryan makes out with Kelly in the office?
Yes, that's exactly. Yeah, and then he gets it. No. Oh my God, it was February 13th. Yeah.
Yeah. You're
that's exactly right.
I think being single and going out on Valentine's night, especially when Valentine's is on a Saturday, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Zach, that's my advice. We asked the callers to give some advice. That would be mine. Go out tonight. Go get a beer somewhere. Watch that game and get you some wings. Go to Boom Balls for all I care. And and have yourself a great Valentine's night. Okay.
That's right. Oh, that'll be that's in the works.
All right. Kentucky comes up short in Gainesville against Florida. Plenty to like, but you get down big early. It's the same story there, and too much sloppy play to mount yet another comeback. But the season moves forward, and plenty of winnable games for Kentucky. Want to give a shout out to Justin Sofero for making sure we sound all right here on ESPN Louisville Plus. Zach Cantrell, have a great Saturday. We are going to. I got to talk about my plans real briefly. Wife is currently upstairs making an amazing steak dinner. I can't wait to eat that. Thankful for her, and then we'll watch a movie or something. But we've got 2 kids under 4, so it's not going to be the John evening. I can tell you that much.
Not with that attitude.
I can't wait to hear the John update. Gosh, I got to get like him, I suppose. Everybody be well. We'll see you next time here on ESPN 680, the Bud Light Kentucky postgame show.